is a flipped classroom and why are they talking about it? Why is there so much of an interest these days in the flipped classroom? And why do we have more educators, more teachers, more educational institutions across the globe taking to the approach? To understand the rising interest, the increasing exploration of teaching learning process grounded in the flipped methodology, we need to get to the essentials of that. What is a flipped classroom? Generally, the word flip refers to the act of turning something upside down. When you flip a book, or when you say that the speeding car hit the embankment and flipped, you mean that it turned upside down, topsy-turvy. So anything in which the current position is turned upside down, or anything which involves a reversal, you can call as a flipping. A flipped classroom is one in which there is a reversal of the traditional instructional process. Now let us look at the kind of instructional process which happens in a traditional classroom. A teacher would walk into the classroom, whether you talk about a school classroom or a classroom of a higher educational institution. A teacher would walk up into the classroom and the teacher would lecture for 40-45 minutes. And after lecturing for 45 minutes, delivering the content in the form of a lecture, the learners may be given homework, projects, assignments, activities which they are expected to do at home and come back for the next class on the next day. That explains the usual process of educational activity in a classroom space. Now, when you come to the flipped mode of learning, there is one significant reversal happening, and that is the delivery of the instruction, the delivery of the content, or what you call the class, the lecture, will not happen in the group space called the classroom. Instead of that, the lecturer, the teacher, would record his lecture, and the pre-recorded lecture, it may be in a video format or in an audio format, that pre-recorded lecture will be delivered to the learner. These days, probably online, and the learner is capable of watching, listening to that lecture, and then come to the class. This is the first part of it. And in the second part, what happens is, when the learner reaches the classroom, apparently after having listened to the lecture, after watching the lecture, he or she would be tested on the essentials of what they have understood, and then they would be given activities of increasing difficulty, increasing complexity, to check their awareness of it, to check how far they have understood the information, and to see how far they are capable of employing what they have understood. And the classroom will have a more dynamic character, a more active character, in which students would be indulging in activities in groups, in pairs, and the instructor will be moving around, observing what is happening, providing assistance wherever is necessary, helping out difficult learners who find it difficult, and giving suggestions, inputs wherever called for. This is what happens in a flipped classroom. So there are two phases of it. The first phase is one in which a lecturer pre-records the lecture and sends it to the learner. And second stage is one in which the learner comes to the classroom fully equipped, having listened to the lecture which was delivered online. It need not always be delivered online. It could be delivered in a number of formats. It can even be in the form of a text sometimes. And in the second phase, they are coming into the classroom where the classroom becomes a more dynamic kind of a space in which they'll have more time for clearing their doubts, more time for activities, more peer-to-peer connection in the classroom space, and more involvement on their part. So the dull classroom in which the students were apparently receptive for the length of 40-45 minutes when the teacher kept on talking is transformed into an active learning space where more interaction becomes possible, more learning happens, more original thinking will be in display in the group space, and more interestingly, importantly, they would be applying the concepts they have got from the pre-recorded online delivered lecture. This is what happens in a flipped classroom. And this is exactly why we call it flipped, because what usually happens in a traditional classroom is reversed by sending lecture home and then turning the classroom space into a dynamic, communicative space. And this is one reason some of us would simplify the whole process and say that a flipped classroom is one in which what usually traditionally happens at home happens in the classroom, and what usually happens in the classroom happens at home. That is because of the flipping we are talking about. Thank you.